Hello everyone, my name is Leonardo Ribeiro Nunes and I'm a University of Miami student of economics and I live right now in Brazil. So as we approach the end of the semester, we have come to our last video assignment from a religion class. And this time we were assigned to put together a little journal with four entries that talk a little bit about our experience, our worldview, and how our classes and the lessons affected the way we see the world, how we perceive things around us in general. Also, to make a little reflection about how the semester went. For me, I felt it that way because I have like different times of entry and different views as the semester went along. So I'm here to present to you a little bit. So I want to start with my journal starts with the very beginning of the class. What do I mean with your very beginning of the class? First week I already did a journal, so I have a little bit of a reflection on the very beginning of the semester in August, and I brought to you some key talking points and a little bit to understand who I am and what I do, because that's how I saw the first week when the professor, Dr. Paul Shockley, was introducing us the topic. First of all, I looked inside to see how I saw evil and suffering, how I perceived the world. And of course, growing up Catholic, it influenced many of my decisions and my view of the world. So already in the beginning of the class, I had some pushback because it makes us think about on how God sees the world, and God sees power and suffering and evil, and we have to struggle with all these concepts by ourselves and of course with the professor help. So I realized in the beginning of the class that I'd avoid suffering without meaning to. It was not like an intention that I had, but I had a tendency to overlook suffering, to not actually see it because maybe sometimes it was not in my day to day. So it's like so easy for us not to think about, not to reflect upon it. And that was one of my first realizations in this class. So I started thinking about it more often. So in quiet moments where I was praying, or maybe I was in the church, and also in my private life, maybe in the shower, I saw me having these little reflections and thoughts, like struggling with these concepts from one point to the other, trying to come to conclusions in a very difficult subject to come to any type of conclusion. So you have to understand, I mean, what I had to come understand is that distraction is part of life. So from the gym to studying to friends, you don't have, not that I wouldn't say time, but you don't have the attention to put on this, but you have like to find it. And then you come to a second conclusion that you cannot fix the world, you cannot solve all these problems, you cannot change anything from like night to day. So your worldview has to change. So at the same time, you cannot change anything very, very big. You can start small. You can start by maturing your brain and trying to help people. And although I always help people, it made me more conscious about who I'm helping and why I'm helping them. So now going to the second journal, I think this was week 3 or 4, if I'm not mistaken. I kind of forgot now, to be honest. But the problem of evil became more personal, and Epicurus made me remember moments in life when I felt unfair and I couldn't see any purpose behind the suffering. So you can see how the class was going on, and I was trying to find these moments in my life where it shaped my view on evil and suffering. And I saw it in the past, some moments where it was hard for me to understand that the struggle, that the pain, that the suffering in my personal life had a purpose, but I always try to get through it. Like, oh no, this is happening to make me stronger, or this is happening to make me smarter, or this is maybe even happening to become a better person, or so I can view something that I didn't view before. And my own setbacks or my own failures and my own suffering, I'm gonna put in a little bit of our air quotes here because suffering is basically how we view it. so we can shape reality. And that's a little bit of my point here in this journal, that our own setbacks make you view who you are, view what you do. And if you like are grateful for the person that you are now, you kind of are grateful for all the suffering you've been through. And you need to see the bigger picture, which is something very hard for all of us. We need to see the higher purpose, the higher calling, and how we can get through everything to get better in the end. So natural evil is the hardest part to explain. That's be earthquakes, diseases, tragedies, and related to human choices. And they raise a tougher question about God, the toughest, I'm sorry. But if we really look at as, let's say, a very bigger plan, we can kind of see how things are getting better, right? Although really hard to see. My Catholic background grounds me, and at least I see it as a bigger purpose, a bigger calling, something that in the end makes everything worth it, right? And a little bit what I was thinking about this week, that week, is that faith and confusion can coexist. Like you can still have faith and be confused at the same time. One thing doesn't explain everything. So, and you should be always searching, you should be always getting better, you should be striving to be a better version of you, to understand more. And for that, you kind of need to be confused too, correct? For Journal 3 and Journal 4, I got my extra credit opportunities, and I put them here because they are two very, very, very powerful thought process, and both made me like think a lot. It made me use my brain in the literal sense. But as we are approaching a little bit at the end of the time here, I want to talk about my journal 4 and the conversation between Craig and Sino Armstrong a little bit more, because it was something that really hit close. So a little bit of summary. Craig believes suffering fits into a larger moral framework. He argues free will is necessary for love, virtue, and moral responsibility, and that suffering has hidden purpose. Craig also links morality to God. Without God, he believes evil becomes just personal preference, not an objective truth. On the other hand, Sinon Armstrong believes some suffering seems pointless and views suffering, at least some parts of this, as without having any sort of an objective. He brings examples like sick children and natural disasters to argue that atheism doesn't explain that well. The free will defense doesn't explain natural evil. Earthquakes and genetic diseases aren't caused by human choices. So you kind of see all these concepts which are really hard to fathom and to explain, and they all put like this together. So when I was watching and I was trying to understand, it's a lot of hard ideas to put together, so you make them like 10 times harder. And both sides have their strength and weakness. Craig's offer a moral framework, and Sino Armstrong's offer a scientific and emotional challenge. And my takeaway personally is that suffering doesn't disprove God. I see suffering as part of the tension of being human, not as reason to abandon faith. I see that we as humans must go to evil and suffering and pain in order to grow. Some evil and suffering are really hard to explain, and there is a point that makes us think very deeply on this concept. But even though it is hard to explain, I believe that suffering and evil exist for the betterment of people and of society, and to make all of us better as a whole, like I said in the beginning, in the bigger picture, in the end of the day. So this, I put this as the last journal, and also is one of the things I thought most about during the semester. For me, was one of the most interesting, if not the most interesting thing in this class. So I want to thank you guys for your time. Thank you guys for your attention. And that's it. Have a blessed end of the year, everybody. Bye.